Some of the main characteristics, Gene. The instrument is totally made of wood. It's originally built. It is an acoustical instrument. It's built to be not amplified or electrified, however we use it that way in this country.
Sometimes.
Originally, the strings also were made of gut, whereas now we've gone to nylon and wound strings.
How many strings?
Originally, there were 5 strings in pairs, tuned together in fourths. Now we have, let me say that originally they used to have at the top a single string, a cheater string that they called, because the old-time musicians in the old country didn't have much positioning on the instrument. So they had that single string that was a cheater string. Instead of going up here and playing, they would just go up there.
It was tuned high?
It was tuned high.
I see.
So, and being a single string, it had a very metallic type sound. In the late 1920s, they start doing away with that string.
Here or in the
old country
as well?
As well as in the old country. And they just did away with it and moved the strings up one notch. And then in the early 60s, the younger generation that was born here and were familiar with the guitar got an idea that instead of the cheater string, maybe they should add a low accent string.
A single string.
A single string.
Yeah.
It's the very lowest, and so that was really added on in the United States.
Oh.
It was the thought of the youngsters here.
Yeah.
And they use it now in the Middle East.
Oh, that's a really wonderful illustration of what I was saying earlier.
It grabbed hold, you know.
Yeah, that the influence now starts to go back in the other direction. That's
right.
Quite exciting.
Even the masters who wouldn't use it, when they'd come here, they'd play on an instrument, and it's a little difficult, of course, when you're not used to having a string on there, and they'd go back and immediately put one on.
Ah, that's wonderful. So you have 5 sets of double strings and the low string.
And the low string, and 2 of them are tuned in octaves. In other words, there's...
I see. Right, that's still fourths?
Well, yes, it's D, A, E, B, A, and E.
Okay.
And of course, in the fingering, like I was explaining to you a little while ago, they use the first, third, and the last.
Right.
And never the middle. Now, when I say never, some of them do. We were taught by the masters that that was not, because the intervals are a little spread.
I see.
So it's not like the violin where you have to put it real close like this.
Yeah.
Actually, you would get not a true tone. Although some of the oudists back east do use it because they took violin lessons to begin with.
Right.
So they're used to using that finger.
Right. So, but the other very interesting thing is that there are no frets. This
No
has a
frets.
fingerboard just like a violin.
Absolutely, no frets.
And that allows you to get some notes which are not characteristic of our scale. Can you show some of those quarter tones or
Sure.
in between notes? I think people can hear them.
For instance, if we play in a mode, we play in modes and not in scales, like the A minor, which we call neva. See, now this would be the natural. This would be the flat. But we play.
Right.
In between.
And I never realized that you actually use your nail on it. Ordinarily, people who play instruments where they need a left hand have to clip their
Right.
left hand fingernails.
We were
But
taught
you
to use the
them.
nails.
Right.
Because there's a definite difference in tone. You
Right.
get a dull tone when you use the meat part, and there's a brilliant sound when you play right on the nail.
Yes, and it really is a lovely sound. Can we hear another song now or a tune that you'd like to play just to hear more of this instrument? Harold is playing the ceramic drum, right? And it's characteristic that this is a very standard
Yes.
combination, isn't it?
In Armenian, they call that either tumpug, and sometimes they call it dumbeg, and there's several names depending on what part of the Middle East you come from.
Right.
Actually, the traditional drums that they use in Armenia are either with stick and a huge what we call tokhmach, or a cylindrical type drum they hang on and play with the hands.
Right.
This is not really native to.
Yes. It's a Middle Eastern drum that shows up both, I know, in Arabic as well. In Israel, they call it a Miriam drum these days. They use it, sometimes they play it by snapping the side of it.
Right.
That way.
Well, it was originally intended to sit across the lap. You know, they lay it across the lap instead of this way.
Yes,
This is
right.
another American-born idea.
Adaptation. Okay. Harold, is it hard for you to learn to pick up rhythms on this when you play it?
Yeah, well, the rhythms are not like rhythms that you're accustomed to in the Western world. They have different accents, and like a 7/8 is not common, except
Right.
like maybe jazz may have used 7/8.
Yeah, right.
Rhythms like that are a little difficult.